It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. LSU opens up the SEC tournament with a dominating 9-1 win over Georgia. They will advance to play the Kentucky Wildcats on Wednesday in Hoover. LSU has now entered the double elimination portion of the tournaments. They are guaranteed 2 more games, so they will kind of carry us through the week here on Musso at the box. There is so much to get to with that game from Tuesday morning against Georgia. We can talk about Gage Jump, and we will. We can talk about the offense, and we will, because that's 2 games in a row now that LSU's offense has just looked phenomenal against SEC competition. We can talk about the fact that LSU has now squarely, firmly locked themselves in to the NCAA tournament. That is no longer a debate. We'll give you their updated and really final resume, what it means going forward, what more they can do to now just improve their standing in the NCAA tournament, so on and so forth. And of course, we will give you a brief preview of the Kentucky Wildcats, who are a very impressive team, a similar team to the one LSU faced last season 5 times, but much more impressive than they were in the 2023 campaign. So we have a lot to do. Glad you're here with me. Buckle in, smash the like button, get subscribed to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Get subscribed on your favorite podcast app if you have not already. Follow me on all the social medias, and let's get right down to business. LSU, Georgia, they were the first game of the 2024 SEC tournament, and it was LSU 9-1 behind a stellar outing from Gage Jump, some great timely hitting and constant offensive pressure, and arguably the best defensive game that LSU has played all season long. Here was Jay Johnson after the win.
Very proud of our team. We're playing the best baseball we've played all year over the last 20 games, playing as good as anybody in the country. With the stakes of today's game, we controlled what we could control really well. Gage was phenomenal on the mound. We put this in play about 3 weeks ago that he would pitch this game if we'd put ourselves in the position we did, which was to be an NCAA tournament team. So he's been working hard and ready to roll, and was good today against one of the best offenses in college baseball. Big day out of Josh and the lineup, and another great 0 and air column. So proud of how we played. Get back to the hotel, get to work on Kentucky, and great effort from the Tigers today.
Gage Jump was incredible, and that's where we have to start. I mean, look, we talked about this decision on the preview, and you heard Jay Johnson say right there that they had put this in motion 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. This was not just some spur-of-the-moment deal. I told y'all in the preview that this was what I thought they would do. Now, I didn't give you the 3 weeks ago thing, but it just made a lot of sense that LSU would go Jump. So I wasn't surprised by the decision, and if you listen to the show, you shouldn't have been surprised by the decision. Jay Johnson was asked about the decision to start Gage Jump, and this is what he said, and some of it, if you listen to this show, will sound very, very familiar.
I respect the question, but that's major leaguer. That's what he's going to do with his life, is pitch on 4 days rest. I just got out ahead of it, of going like, hey, we're moving you to the first game. And then once we were playing well, won 3 series in a row, what we want to do is right in front of us. And so this game was probably going to be important. I don't think it should be relative to our resume and our season, but it probably is. And that's the best offense in college baseball statistically. And there you go. He's why we're one of the best teams in the country right now. And everybody got to see that today. I don't think it's as big a deal as we thought. And we were monitoring it very closely. But his excitement level when I went to him with this a few weeks ago was like, oh yeah, like let's go. And that plays a big part in it too.
Gage Jump later this summer is going to be pitching on 4 days rest regularly. He's going to be drafted high in July. He's going to sign, and he's going to be pitching on 4 days rest regularly for the rest of his life. He can handle it. I get it. First time this year, all of that, coming off of an injury, fine. Gage Jump, the way they brought him along, the way he handled his recovery, that was never a concern for me. We've referenced it plenty on this show throughout, all the way back to media day, how detailed he was when talking about his recovery, how on top of it he was. That wasn't an issue. You know he's a competitor. And the other thing that Jay Johnson said in there was also something we talked about. What this game meant for LSU's NCAA tournament. He told you it shouldn't mean anything, but it's probably important. We said the same thing. I told y'all I was very confident that LSU was in at 13-17 with their resume, their metrics, looking at what happened around the country on the bubble. And yes, even with the 5 SEC teams being tied there, South Carolina had been terrible down the stretch, as had Vanderbilt, and you had been one of the hottest teams in the country. Add in it all. Metrics, what have you done for me lately? Everything of that nature, I felt great about LSU. But there was one way to just drive the nail home, and it was beat Georgia, who's a top 5 a top 5 RPI team. And the best way to go ahead and do that against that offense is throw your horse. And that's what they did. And it was absolutely the right decision. And Gage Jump rewarded you with 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, a season-high 105 pitches. Oh, by the way, retiring 17 of the last 18 that he faced and 10 in a row to end his outing. He was absolutely dominant. Gage Jump, not only did he set the tone and, for you this week now, hopefully in Hoover, but for that game, not only did he hold down one of the best offenses in college baseball, and doing all of that, he made himself a lot of money Tuesday in Hoover too. That guy mowed, carved, cut down one of the best lineups in college baseball, and it was a familiar outing that we had seen from Gage Jump, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but one thing that I loved from him, we've talked so much about what it looks like when he's going well, and we focus a lot in on the curveball, because his slider's good, but that curveball is a really good pitch. But the pitch that stood out to me so much from Jump on Tuesday was the fastball, because he had it glove side and arm side. He was able to move it around the plate. It really played well glove side to Charlie Condon specifically. And if you're going to be able to handcuff and tie him up, that's the first step in having success against that Georgia lineup. And he was able to do that. But because he had such great command of the fastball, inside, out, up, down, it made everything else play so well off of it. And when you have as good of a slider as Gage Jump does, and as good of a curveball, and you saw a few changeups mixed in there as well, it's just such a monumental task to hit him no matter who you are. It's why, like Jay Johnson said, he's going to be a major leaguer one day. All started for me today with him with the fastball command, in, out, up, and down. It was a masterclass. It was a Gage Jump masterclass on the mound against that Georgia team. And, it was awesome. He gave you exactly what you needed. Now, I said it was a kind of a outing we've seen from him before, because early in the game, the pitch count got elevated. How many times have we talked about that recapping Jump's outings? Whether it's in the immediate reaction, whether it's in the full recap. You can look at the Auburn game. You can look at A&M series, even Alabama to an extent. There's so many. Florida was one of them. Gage Jump gets stronger as the game goes on. And we have talked about it over and over again, and he did it again. He was well over 30 pitches after 2 innings, had allowed a run, and that's when, and in the third, he allowed 2 more guys to reach. He got out of that, and that's when he started that string of 17 of 18, and the final 10 retired. He just settled in, got you deep into the ball game, and it's nowadays in baseball, not just college baseball, nowadays in baseball, it's so rare to see a starter go through a lineup 3 times. Whether it's college, big league, minor league, it's rare to see. Gage Jump has been doing that regularly for LSU down the stretch, and he's been getting stronger as he goes. What was interesting about that, though, is Jay Johnson on the broadcast when they did that mid-game interview with him. By the way, mid-game interviews are still one of the worst friggin' things ever, and they should be outlawed. Let the coach the frickin' game. He doesn't want to talk to you. Leave him alone. That's what post-game interviews are for. But I digress. While Jay Johnson was on air with the guys from the SEC Network, they asked him about a pitch count for Gage Jump. If they had something, that they wanted to do. Jay said he had a number in mind. He wouldn't go into it. After the game, Jay Johnson was asked if LSU kind of passed up that number that they had, adjusted it mid-game because of how Gage Jump was rolling. Listen to what Jay Johnson said.
I think I was kind of in the 90 to 100, but we were going to pay attention to how he looked, felt, all of those types of things. 9:30 game, a little bit odd, obviously, from what we do all year. He's pitched at night most of the season, obviously pitching on either, game 1 or game 2. But I was very intentful kind of watching the first couple innings, and it's a great offense. Like, you can't make a mistake of leaving somebody in too long or pulling the wrong guy too early. And then after he gave up the run, the third and the fourth and the fifth went by like that. And I just felt like there was no chance we were going to send him back out, obviously. As he just said, I told Coach Yeski to give him a breather. This is your last hitter. Get convicted with what you're doing, and that's going to be it. But what a performance. And, he'll have more time on the back end before the NCAA tournament now, which is great.
Jay Johnson went into this saying Gage Jump's going to throw 90 to 100 pitches. They were all in. They didn't necessarily have to be, but you couldn't let the chance go by to just drive the final nail in the coffin. And that's what they did. And they did it on the back of Gage Jump, and he deserves all the praise for that effort that he put forward. He was awesome. Absolutely awesome. It was the type of performance you have just come to expect from him. Now, offensively, let's talk a little bit about that. LSU, that is one of their best offensive games all year. Now, we talked about it in the preview. Georgia's not a great pitching staff. They don't have an ace. They slug. They slug. And I told you I didn't think LSU could outslug them. But LSU needed to follow the same blueprint. They needed to get a good start from their guy. They needed to have timely hitting and have the bullpen hold the rope. That's how LSU, I didn't even mean to say that, but how about that? Hat tip Skip Bertman. That's how LSU has won down the stretch. That's what they did today. And in fact, they slugged a little bit. What's a number we've been really harping on for LSU baseball offensively? Average with runners in scoring position. LSU on Tuesday against Georgia hit .353 with runners in scoring position. They loaded the bases 3 separate times throughout the ballgame. Twice in the first inning. You had a big clutch 2 RBI single from Josh Pearson that scored 2 runs in the first. Then you reloaded the bases, and you couldn't get the run home, and that stinks. But oh well. In the second inning, that's not the second inning. In the second inning, you had another RBI from Josh Pearson after you loaded the bases once again. RBI ground out, and you're up 3-0. You go to the 5th inning, and the 5th inning was just beautiful. And I even tweeted this. Mashing the ball out of the ballpark is a lot of fun. And we've become plenty accustomed to LSU doing that. Gorilla ball, all that, not the 90s, whatever. You know the history. You don't mean to tell you. They had 144 homers last year. Like, that's a lot of fun. But the ability to manufacture runs is just so satisfying to watch and play station-to-station baseball. And that's what LSU did in the 5th inning. Josh Pearson leads off with a double. After a flyout, Milam singles. That drives home Pearson. Bingham with singles. So now you're looking at first and second. Larson walks. And then so that's another time you've loaded the bases. That's at least 4 times here. Milazzo singles through the right side. He has just been so incredibly clutch with the bat down the stretch for LSU. It's incredible. Like we've been saying it, we'll say it again. The average isn't going to jump off the page at you, but what he's done down the stretch, whether it was against Auburn, A&M, Alabama, now in the SEC tournament against Ole Miss, he's come up with the big hit when you've needed it, and he did it there. LSU, station to station, manufacturing runs, puts up a 2-spot there in that inning, and extended their lead. That made it 5-1. You'd had another run in the 7th, and then in the 9th, LSU was able to really kind of finally blow the game open. Stephen Milam homers. After Bingham's hit by a pitch, Brown singles up the middle. He had been inserted for Larson. Milazzo comes up, another single for Milazzo to score another run, and then Tommy White would single again. Tommy White is just on another level hot right now that we'll get into because he's one of the guys I want to highlight. But it was massive. Now, while all that's going on, like before you get to that point, Griffin Herring comes in the 8th and walks the first 2 batters he's facing, and it's not looking good. At that point, it's a 5-run game. First and second, nobody out, and Charlie Condon coming to the plate. All Griffin Herring does is slip a dandy slider in there for the first pitch, and then gets a ground ball double play, unassisted to Tommy White, 5 unassisted to 3, and extinguishes the threat. We've talked a lot about tipping points, winning tipping points in the ball game. That's a huge friggin' tipping point in the ball game that LSU won. So was the second inning when Jump was able to wiggle off the hook and then settle in. That game is exactly what they've been doing down the stretch, and they just did it against a really, really good team. I remember when they were beating up on Missouri and Auburn, I said I didn't care because you can just look. If you're really looking, you can see that they're playing better, and if they keep doing that, it'll show up against better competition. It did against A&M. It did against Alabama for the most part. I know you didn't get that series win, and it did again against Georgia. They're playing better. They're going to be a really tough out for somebody in the SEC, in the NCAA tournament, and hell, in the SEC tournament too. Guys, there's so much I want to say about this ball game. How about Josh Pearson? I mean, we have the conversation over and over and over again about that guy in the postseason and even down the stretch. Just, I mean, once you get into late April and May, Josh Pearson just finds this gear, and he's awesome. At one point, Josh Pearson, I mean, he had drove in all 3 of your runs at one point. Josh Pearson 3, Georgia nothing, right? It's a 2-for-4 day with those 3 RBIs. He drew a walk. He played a nice left field. He was just very, very good. Stephen Milam, again, man, just he continues to go 2-for-4. The exclamation point homer that he had in the 9th inning was awesome. And Tommy friggin' White. You talk about getting hot at the right time. Tommy Tanks is scorching. You know that gif of the guy just walking and he's on fire? That's Tommy White right now. He went 8 for 13 against Ole Miss with 3 homers, a triple, couple doubles, 7 RBI, 615, 8 for 13. Tommy White is now 11 for his last 19. He's 11 for his last 19. Let's do a quick math on that real fast. 578. He's just a machine right now, and you're finally being able to set him up with guys on base, and it's been great. And you know what? The addition of Michael Braswell in that leadoff spot, huge. Huge. And we've had that conversation here before plenty where he's a comparable guy. Was it him or Kling? Comparable guy. Braswell was their opening day leadoff hitter. It was obviously a guy they felt comfortable with. They just had to find the right spot to really put him back in there, and they've done it, and he was great. A 3-hit day for him, 3 for 6 at the top of the order. The top 2 guys in LSU's lineup were 6 for 12. They hit 500. You counter that with the top of Georgia's order, 1 through 3, which we talked about a lot with Corey Collins being top 5 in the nation and on base, getting on all the time in front of Condon, Trey Phelps providing protection, just being really good. The top 3 in Georgia's lineup, you ready? 1 for 11. 1 for 11 with 3 strikeouts. They drew one walk. They were on base twice. That's it. Charlie Condon's 24-game hitting streak, gone. The job LSU did against the entire Georgia lineup, but the top of that lineup specifically, incredible. And the single was by Collins. That was in the first inning. They didn't reach base again until the 8th when Herring walked Collins. You had that whole bookend. You had the whole middle there where the top of that lineup did nothing. And even when Collins reaches, that's when you got the double play for Condon. Incredible. The contrast between the top half of the lineups, even the top 4 in the lineups. You can throw Pearson in there, having the 3 RBI and the 2 hits, and throw Slade Alford in there for Georgia, and you're looking at 2 hits in the top 4 compared to 8 for LSU. That's something, the game within the game, that's just massive. So constant pressure for LSU offensively. They were great. You had clutch defensive plays, whether it was the bare hand play from Tommy White, which is just sick, the double play that he turned. You had a catch from Larson where he smashes into the wall and robs a double. You had 2 great plays by Bingham in the outfield, the diving catch on Condon in the alley, as well as he went back on a ball to the warning track. Fantastic. Like LSU, they played arguably their best game of the year against Georgia when they needed it most in the eyes of some. And that's kind of where I want to take the conversation to now. We spent a lot of time on that game. That's where I kind of want to take the conversation to now is LSU's updated resume and then being in. Jay Johnson was asked after the game the emphasis they put on it going into looking at it at its what it might mean for their NCAA tournament possibility.
It was an unbelievable opportunity as I saw it. I really believe we're one of the best teams in the country. We're just playing all the other ones. I mean, of our 10 league series, 8 of those teams are going to be in the NCAA tournament along with us. Nobody else does that. I think that's our 19th win against the top 45 RPI teams in the country. I think that's like less than 5 teams have that. We're, like 9-3 against teams 25-40, which is usually the bubble. So logically, my brain goes to, we're in a good spot. Now, this was an opportunity to take RPI number 5, national television audience, one of the best pitchers in the country that people don't know about because he's kind of emerged this year. And what a good win for our team for a lot of reasons.
It is the same conversation that we have been having on this show for weeks. When we were looking at LSU's path, and we were looking at, okay, how can they get there in the regular season without needing Hoover? Okay, if they don't do that, what do they need to do in Hoover? And each time we talked about Hoover being an opportunity, the same word that Jay Johnson used, because where you were going to be seated, you were going to play a very highly ranked team in the league. And even without where you were going to be seated, the league is so damn strong this year that it was always going to be a great opportunity. So you were in my eyes, I'll say it one more time, I think you were in. But that was your opportunity to drive the final nail in the coffin, and by damn, they did it. And if you look at LSU's resume now, after that, LSU's RPI is 25th. LSU has 14 wins against SEC competition. LSU has 8 wins, quad 1 now. Their strength of schedule is back into the top 20 at number 18. Jay there said 19 wins against the RPI top 50 or top 45. It's fluctuated a little bit. It's ever-changing, that number. Right after the game, LSU sat at 17 wins against the RPI top 50. Their KPI has shot up. Everything has shot up. They are in. Lock it in. It would take an absolutely wild scenario with multiple, like an astronomical amount of bid stealing to go on for LSU to not be in the NCAA tournament at this point. They are in. They are going to play postseason ball. They are going to be the 3 seed that nobody wants to see. They are going to be an incredibly tough out. And damn it, I can't wait to frickin' watch it. That team, they deserve a lot of credit. We'll see what type of run they can make, but they deserve a lot of credit for not quitting when they really could have this year. LSU was 3-12 in the SEC at the halfway point. And now they are a lock for the NCAA tournament. hats off. That's awesome. Now, I know what a question everybody wants answered. What can they do to get to a 2 seed? Is it possible for LSU to get off the 3 line? I've been asked that already probably a handful of times since that game ended. I think the only way LSU does that is by winning the SEC tournament. I don't think LSU is going to win the SEC tournament. Maybe they do. Who knows? They get hot? Sure, they can. We've seen it happen. But I think that's the only path they have to getting off of the 3 line is winning the whole thing. And I just, it's hard to do from Tuesday. That is a hard thing to do coming from Tuesday. So, we'll see. But that's what I think. Right now, they are in. And we'll have more baseball to talk about. All right, let's talk about the Kentucky Wildcats. Speaking of more baseball to talk about, this is going to be an interesting matchup. So, it's funny. We talked about in the preview with Georgia being one of the top 5 offenses in the conference, and LSU just having to play them all, right? But we looked back and said there's a path for them to have success against them, and damn it, wasn't there ever. Kentucky's in that boat. Kentucky is a top 5 offense in the SEC when it comes to batting average, when it comes to run scores, when it comes to all of that. LSU will have played all 5 of them now. Tennessee, Georgia, Bama, A&M, Kentucky. Kentucky hits 294 as a team, but they have scored the 4th most runs in the league at 423. We know what their offense is, right? Get them on, get them over, get them in. But I'm here to tell you they are much more balanced offensively than they were last year. Kentucky still plays small ball, for sure. You look at Kentucky, they're 2nd in the league in hit by pitch. Kentucky leads the league in sack bunts. They're 4th in sack flies. They lead in stolen bases and stolen base attempts. They're always going to try their small ball. The difference is they're popping the ball out of the park a lot more this year. Kentucky has 75 home runs on the season. You might say that's not that many. They hit 54 last year. So you're looking at more than 21 more homers for Kentucky this season. That's a part of their offense, and it's allowed them to be able to have constant pressure, where you're not just totally relying on get them on, get them over, get them in. So that does add another dimension to this team. But what's going to be massively important for LSU against Kentucky is one of the same conversations we had last year. Keep the leadoff man off base. And LSU did a great job of that against Georgia, only allowing 3 leadoff men out of 9. You need to do something similar to Kentucky. There is a path. I will say it again. There's a path for LSU to pitch well against Kentucky because LSU has pitched well against the top 5 offenses in the league. Who pitches? Well, that's a great question. It'd be real easy to sit here and say Luke Holman. And to be quite honest with you, I think that's who they're going to go with. It would be on short rest. It'd be his 5th day, just like Gage Jump. Maybe you don't. LSU doesn't have to throw Luke Holman on Wednesday. And let me be clear. If it were up to me, I wouldn't throw Luke Holman on Wednesday. Because you're in. You don't need this game. But I think LSU might throw Luke Holman on Wednesday. And I'm A-okay with that. I am A-okay with that if they want to do it. But I don't think you have to. You don't need to make a statement. You've passed the eye test. You've passed the metric test. You're in. If it's not Luke Holman, they'll do it similar to how they've been doing game 3s. It's just that simple. But, we will see. Excuse me, frog in the throat there. We will see what LSU elects to do. Again, I wouldn't throw Luke Holman because you don't have to. But I think Jay just might do that, actually, and for a lot of the same reasons. It's another opportunity in national television against the top team that's going to be a top 3 seed in this tournament to go out there and get a win and just further solidify your case, even though it doesn't need any more solidified. But hell, leave no doubt if you can. Kentucky's one weakness, their pitching staff has struggled a little bit, and especially down the stretch here for sure. So, again, Similar names, right? I mean, you could have got like Ryan Hagenau, him. Jackson Novey, who's a really good left-handed option for them out of the bullpen. Mason Moore, obviously, but he's in a starting role now this year, so you won't really see him. Travis Smith has been a guy that's been really good for them out of the bullpen, as well as Drew Lafferty, and both those guys, I guess, are options for them to start. But you could actually see Kentucky start Trey Poozer, who has been their ace, really here for the majority of conference play. So that's what you got there, but it's not it's not a team that is great on the mound. Like, they have an ERA over 5 as a team. There is opportunity to score. So for LSU, you're looking for the same blueprint. And here's the thing. LSU's going to pitch well enough to win in this game. Whether it's Holman, whether it's Johnny Holstaff, LSU's going to pitch well enough to win in this game. Can they keep constant pressure on Kentucky and get the timely hits when they need them? That's it. If they do that, they have a great chance to win this game. And I'll go ahead and give you a pick. I actually think LSU is going to win this game. I think LSU beats Kentucky on Wednesday morning. I think the Tigers win. I think, for what I just said, I like the way the offense is going, man. I really, really do. Especially at the top of that lineup right now, and you're getting enough production from the bottom to set those guys up to where you're really maximizing it. I love the way that LSU's lineup is going currently. The only thing I would like to see is Jared Jones kind of find it again, like he had it a little bit down the stretch. It's just been a rough couple of games for Jones, but I like LSU. I think they throw Luke Holman. I wouldn't, but I think they throw Luke Holman. I think he pitches well. I think you have plenty in the bullpen with Little and Guidry and all those guys. You will pitch well enough to win, and I think you will get enough timely hits. So give me LSU to beat Kentucky, and then they would advance on, be 2-0, and you guarantee yourself at least one more game in Hoover. So that's what we got, y'all. Great day for LSU Tuesday against Georgia, and you look forward to more. Smash the like button if you have not already. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. All the above. Follow me on all social media. It's greatly appreciated. And be here for more next time on Musso at the Box.